What on the screen here? Good afternoon. I think we can get started as we finishing up all the technical issues. Today is April 7th.
That's me. Somebody's got their.
Today is April 7th.
It's the backbeat for me. Backbeat for me. How do I turn that off?
How about now? Still feedback?
No, I'm not hearing
Okay. Today is April 7th, 2022. This is the duly called meeting of the Texas Low-Level Radioactive Waste Disposal Compact Commission. The time is 2:12. You're getting a little bit of a late start. As a reminder for everyone online, we ask that you mute your audio until we ask you to speak. If you want to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom platform, and we will try to recognize you as quickly as possible. We want to thank once again the low-level forum for coming to our state and meeting, and those of you that attended the low-level forum meeting, we welcome you and hope that maybe this will be the first of many meetings of ours. Today's meeting will have a couple of executive sessions, so there'll be some naturally built-in breaks just for your planning purposes. My name is Brandon Hurley. I am the chairman of the low-level compact here in Texas and Vermont. I see that we have Vice Chairman Salzman, the judge, Commissioner Bradford, I'll go from the other end. Commissioner Mundy. I'm sorry. Commissioner Mundy, Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Morris, Commissioner Sadick. I was trying to say them all at the same time. So we have a full quorum here today. Everyone is in attendance. We appreciate all of you traveling to San Antonio. I know that we have Commissioner Bobby Janeka from TCEQ along with several other people from TCEQ. We appreciate your attendance. Any other elected officials with us today? No, we have several people from other forums in other states. Again, we welcome you and thank you for coming to our meeting. Any members of the press here today? Seeing none. That is our first three items on our agenda. We can move on to the fourth item, which is public comment. Because we're in a little bit of a different format, I don't want to adhere too closely to our speaker rules that required previous submission, and obviously we have people online. So if anyone has a public comment of a general nature that they would like to make now, please come forward to the podium or raise your hand online. And I see Karen Haddon getting up, so I'll recognize her. By the way, for everyone's own amusement, we're doing this just so Dan Schrum doesn't feel so bad about his failures yesterday.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here and taking comment. I'm going to limit my comments right now to just a portion of what's going to be addressed today. There's a lot to be addressed, but in particular, the management role. And by the way, I should say I'm Karen Haddon, and I'm here on behalf of the SEED Coalition to Sustainable Energy and Economic Development based in Texas. I think the management rule that you have proposed is really good. I think that everybody did a great job on it and it's strong. I think it's important right now. We're at a place in time where WCS is going to be taking increasing volume and carries low-level waste from around the country with decommissioning. It's going to be speeding up. And I think so it's extra important to do really a thorough job on getting information on the waste coming in and being extra careful to prevent problems. We need to look out for the the state of Texas in terms of our economy, in terms of the health and safety of everyone involved. And I think that this is an important piece of assuring that. So I thank you for doing that. I think there could be even more done. I have always been advocating here that there be independent audits at the site and additional checking in when shipments arrive and acceptance and the whole process. I think that it is something that this body could and should do. I think there are additional steps that could be taken. So I see the management rule as a good first step, and I hope that you will approve it. And thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Haddon. I see Representative Lon Burnham standing up, so I will recognize him next.
Good afternoon, everybody. As most of you know, my name is Lon Burnham, and I'm here representing the Lone Star Tractor Sierra Club and the Texas Office of the Citizen. And I'm not going to thank you for the opportunity to speak, but I am going to thank all of you. I have learned so much the last day and a half and appreciate so much more all the time and effort that you all put into your role as commissioners. It's really important work, as you well know, and I really appreciate the work that you do. But as the outsider, I'm supposed to oftentimes criticize you and get praised for appropriate and criticized. And you know, I particularly point to appreciate John yesterday because it's not an easy task at the end of the day. And I want to appreciate Linda because I think you've really struggled this many years. I think the management rules are important. I was disappointed to hear earlier this morning that every contact commission thinks that health and safety is not their responsibility, because I think every governmental agency's primary responsibility is health and safety. So I think as we move along in this process and we get tighter and tighter rules and regulations and hopefully more accurate reporting as a consequence, it will be a safer and healthier facility. So for now, thank you. Keep up the good work. I wish I could you to work harder. Just I guess we're all still working smarter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Representative Burnham. Any other public comment? And I was remiss earlier. I know that we have some representatives here today from the NRC, and we very much appreciate your attendance. We look forward to working with you more in the future, but we really appreciate all that you do for us and your attendance here today. So everyone from the NRC, thank you very much. Any other public comment? My understanding is that some people online are having a hard time hearing people when they go to the podium. So if you go to the podium today, please speak up a little bit and we'll double check the mic to make sure. As far as a recent issue online about only seeing my ugly mug, I believe that has something to do with the way you view your screen. You can have multiple people on your screen. I'm not a Zoom expert, but if anyone has a comment about that, please post it in the chat, and I bet Megan or Stephen can help with that. With no other public comment, then we will be through with item 4 on our agenda. We'll move on to item 5. I did not see any hands raised. And again, online, if you'd like to speak, please use the raise your hand function. Item 5 on our agenda is, for those of you that regularly come to our meetings, probably notice that things are a little out of order. And we put our import agreements towards the end of our agenda and put a few items in the front. These were reports and issues that we thought might have some public interest. You know, some of you may be trying to catch a plane sometime in the early afternoon, so we thought we'd do these things first and then get to what is probably perceived as our more normal business maybe a little bit later, but we hope you can stay if you want to. Item 5 is something that I want to introduce with this statement. We are going to be seeking some legal opinions on the issue raised by item number 5, and I apologize that you may not get to hear everything, but it's important at this stage that we seek those legal opinions because we are trying to be very careful about this issue. The Rocky Mountain Compact through its executive director, Leonard Slotsky, raised an issue to us that said he believes someone exported waste from his compact without the appropriate export authorization. He provided us some initial information about that. We obviously took it very seriously and began gathering some facts. We're not through with that process yet. We have come to a point where we need some legal counsel on it. And we also probably need to gather some more facts. But the reason it's on today's agenda is really simply for the purposes of allowing us as a group to sit down with our Attorney General representative and get some of that legal counsel. I will simply say this. We take this issue very seriously. We're going to be very methodical about it. We're going to make sure that we hear from all parties about it. And there has been no decision made of any kind about what's going to happen in the future, if anything. But this is the process that we think is important that we establish, not just for this issue, but maybe for the precedential value of the idea of we take these things seriously and follow a very well-defined and thorough process in looking into any time there's an allegation of something like this. We hope that by the next meeting, we will have our fact-finding kind of concluded. When we get our advice from our legal counsel, it may give us a lot more direction on what we should or could or can do. But with that, I will announce that the time is now 2:23 p.m. and the commission will go into executive session to discuss legal matters in seeking counsel from our attorney related to agenda item number 5 pursuant to Government Code 551.074. The commission will reconvene in this and the Zoom meeting at the close of the executive session. For everyone's planning purposes, I think this will probably take between 20 and 30 minutes. So the time probably tells us we'll be back hopefully by about 2:50. If anyone has something they need to go do, we probably have about 30 minutes to do it. And again, we will leave the Zoom open here, but obviously the Zoom will not be present in the executive session because it's not open to the public. So, so if you want to stay on the Zoom chat, you can. If you want to sign out and sign back in, you can. But we will be meeting across the hall and we should be back hopefully by 2:50. Thank you.
Brandon, should we set like a 3 o'clock time?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's probably a good idea. Let's just make sure everybody's back by 3 p.m. and we will start again at 3 p.m. whether we're done before then or not. Thank you. So, do I
Pause for a second.
where's that?
Don't stop video. Pause.
Draft rules out for consideration right now. They have been on our website, or we requested informal comment. They are 31 tax 675.20 definitions, 31 tax 675.21 export, and then 31 675.24, which is the so-called management rule. The current status of these rules is that we have requested clarification on certain issues brought up by some comments made. Regarding that, we had 2 comment letters received from 2 entities regarding the management rule and the management rule comment letter regarding the definition and import the export. As I said, the current status is that we have these reports, these proposed rules under consideration by our general counsel. And as soon as we have an opinion back from them, we will then decide what the next step will be. So at present, we have nothing new to report other than this. And hopefully at an upcoming meeting, we will have more information to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions by the commissioners to the Rules Committee? Then we move on to item 7, which is our capacity committee report, and I will turn it over to Lisa for that report.
We don't have anything here to report at this time, Brandon. We're continuing to work on the submittal form and interactions with OCS.
And for those of you who don't really get to know me, this is supposed to be the 30-second overview of what our capacity committee is, the rules are pretty obvious. Capacity committee is one that is studying metrics and reporting measures on the capacity at the compact race facility in Andrews. Obviously, our primary mission is to protect capacity for the in-compact generators. So what that necessarily triggers is us watching capacity. And what we're trying to do is create kind of a uniform method by which it's reported to us, so we can all maybe make an assessment of when we're getting close to that issue of capacity. We don't believe we're there yet, but we believe these things need to be in place in advance of that, so when it does come, we aren't scrambling to try to find what those metrics should be. So that's what our capacity committee is. Our next item agenda is number 8, which is the contingency plan committee. Again, for those who don't regularly attend our meetings, one of the statutory mandates that we're given in our enacting legislation is that we are to create a contingency plan for the facility. It quite clearly is not well defined in the statute. It is something that is kind of dropped off in the statute and not a lot of explanation is given to it. We have tried diligently for several years now to kind of develop this, but it is most definitely an ongoing work in progress. That committee is chaired by Jeff Mundy, who is the far end. And I will just say that Jeff very recently has we recently have met via telephone because of some of the activities going on with the war with Russia and Ukraine. So I will turn it over to Jeff to give us a report on that.
Thank you, Brandon. Is he mentioned one of the, really the only thing the contingency committee's done recently was when the war in Ukraine started either intentionally or unintentionally targeting their nuclear plant there. Some concerns started rising about something catastrophic failure would generate fallout here. We were blessed with some wonderful technical people on our committee. And quick analysis was no, realistically nothing's going to come here, but it did cause us to look at it and contemplate what would happen if the war did escalate or to unexpected turns, and there was a problem here. And then the question becomes, what if something happens and there's an emergency need to dispose of like contaminated protective equipment, contaminated materials in the city? And that kind of feeds back into our rulemaking side, which we just heard from about trying to do what we need to do to update our rules to allow for us to take emergency actions on whether we need to give work or X work on less than our required 30+ day notice period. For example, if there was a catastrophic event in a major city, you can't just say, well, turn in your application, we'll get back to you in 6 weeks. There might be a need for public health reasons to accelerate disposal and get it into a facility. And so that's really the only outcome of that dialogue. And we've sent communication back to the rule committee, some of the government bureaucracy, but we have 2 commissioners who overlap on both committees, Commissioner Morris and Chairman Hurley. So they effectively kind of get to hear both sides of the house at the same time. But I want to drive home one point. I say every time I get to talk on this, keep your closets cleaned out, keep your storage space cleaned out. I know people are like, I'm going to pay money if I send it over to WCS. You just honestly don't know when or where something unexpected could happen. And every time we meet, we come up with and hear certain scenarios. Honestly, you just don't know when or where something may happen. And I don't know if Commissioner Morris wants to speak to it. There are state rules in Texas, at least, on how long you can store material on site. And so there's legal rules, but just as a matter of practicality, keep your storage cleaned out as best as you can, because there may come a time when you unexpectedly have to sit on it for a long time. So that's my 2 cents.
Sure.
So are we considering a rule change that says that when a state of emergency is declared, per the direction of the governor of Texas, we suspend normal qualification requirements, whatever, and expedite disposal of waste?
The answer is yes, and the analysis that came back, to answer your question, the easiest way, our understanding of where things are right now, if the governor was to declare a state of emergency through executive orders, he can suspend rules, and that did happen during COVID on a variety. I'm a lawyer, I saw it happen in the court system, so even without us amending our rule 30-day notice period, in the state of emergency where the governor declared it, or we could deal with that scenario, and that's something we were discussing. That, and we reached out to the governor's office and to our colleagues at TCEQ and Louisville that, hey, this is, you know, we're a little tiny piece of the puzzle, but here's something we identified in our rules, so they're aware of it. And I know they're looking at it from their side of the equation, so everybody's doing the best they can to deal with this.
Thank you, Commissioner Mundy. And we say this every time, but we will say it again. Contingency planning is not because we think anything's imminent. It is not because we have some sort of inside knowledge that there's going to be something that causes a cessation of operations at the facility. So please, this is our normal caveat, but please note, this is not a statement about anything that's going on currently at the facility. Nothing indicates that there is a looming issue out there that would cause the operations to stop or cease to exist at all. So we want to make sure that we are never leaving the implication that that is happening. So with that, we can move on to item 9 on our agenda, which is the consideration and possible action on applications for the importation of low-level radioactive waste. The first item is item 9A, which is the import application of ADP CR3. And I will hand the mic to the Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The technical committee has received and reviewed an import application from ADP CR3, which is the entity that is decommissioning the Crystal River facility. That was received January 26, 2022. It's number 1-0332-00. In this case, ADP is requesting disposal of waste at the facility in accordance with the Act. They have specifically requested authority for the disposal of Class A, Class B, and Class C unstable power plant decommissioning waste, DAW, filters, and resins. And those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site via letter of correspondence from TCEQ dated March 24, 2022. ADP has requested authority to dispose of up to 5,000 cubic feet and 50 curies. We did receive a letter from WCS supporting approval of the import request. In this case, the materials will come from the state of Florida, which is part of the Southeast Compact. This does not require export authorization. Finally, they've requested a one-year agreement with termination date of August 31, 2022. I think mistakenly, the applicant indicated the waste was from a small quantity generator. Actually, as I gave the talk yesterday, the commission never agreed that a nuclear power facility is a small quantity generator. So it'll just be treated as a regular request. The technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for?
I have one. Didn't we, not only did we, you know, propose call commissioners into Raines, didn't we grant didn't we deal with Crystal River earlier this year? I don't remember that one.
I don't recall.
That's all kind of blurring together.
No, I think this is a new application for this year.
All right.
Dave could probably actually answer that more directly. I don't think they have a pending application or a current cross contract with it.
Okay.
Any other questions for the technical committee on item 9A? Hearing none, we will move on to a motion.
CR three is number 1-0332-00. The waste class is Class A, Class B, and Class C. The waste form is unstable. The waste stream is power plant degradation waste, DAW. Filters, resin. Volume is 5,000 cubic feet. Total curies is 50. The waste is from Florida, Southeast Compact, so it does not require export authorization. And the agreement will be for a period that will expire August 31, 2022.
There's a motion and a second. We do have a further piece of information that I'm going to ask our executive director to share.
They do have a current application, but is it in addition to their current?
Which just as a point of clarification, this happens on occasion because of different waste streams, additional volumes, whatever. They probably could have amended their current agreement, but we've also seen it as a separate agreement. And there may be reasons for that internally. Any other comments? Any public comment on item 9A? Seeing none, we'll make sure there's no hands raised. Seeing no hands raised, we'll move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application request AEDTCR3 represented in item 9A on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. We can now move on to item B, which is the import application of the University of Missouri Research Reactor, and I will turn it back over to our Vice Chairman.
Committee has received Missouri Research Reactor. It's received February 22, 2022. It's number 1-0333. In this case, I'll refer to them as UMRR. It's a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. They have requested authorization for Class A unstable activated reactor components. That waste stream approved. The letter corresponds from TCEQ dated March 24, 2022. They've requested a volume of 45 cubic feet and total radioactivity of 160 curies, which by my recollection is the smallest volume and curie content for irradiated reactor hardware that ever received. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of this import request. The material originates from the state of Missouri, which is in the Midwest Compact, and does not require export authorization. And they've requested an agreement with termination date of August 31, 2022. Technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
As an aside, for those of you who don't regularly attend our meetings too, we are in our disposal year runs from September 1st to August 31st. I think John mentioned that yesterday. This tends to be the period where we see smaller applications. We tend to get our large, what I would call more institutional applications at the beginning or right before the beginning of our disposal year, because obviously people dispose throughout the year. These applications tend to be something that has come up as a one-off issue, and I think that kind of is proven out by what John just said about the smallest irradiated hardware request we've ever received. But with that statement are there any questions of the technical? Hearing none, I think we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import request from the University of Missouri Research Reactor, number 1-0333-00. The waste class is Class A. The waste form is unstable. The waste stream is activated reactor components. The volume is 45 cubic feet. The total radioactivity is 160 curies. Waste originates from Missouri, Midwest Compact, does not require export authorization. And the agreement to terminate August 31, 2022.
There's a motion, is there a second? There's a motion, a second, further discussion about item 9B, the import application versus University of Missouri. Any public comment on item 9B? Hearing none, we'll move on. All in favor of the motion to approve the import application request of University of Missouri, represented in item 9B on our agenda, please indicate so by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. We can now move on to item 9C, which is the import application of Excel Energy. And we will turn it back over to Detective.
The technical committee has received the application of Excel Energy, it's received March 1, 2022, it's number 1-0334-00. In this case, Excel is a generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. Requested authorization for Class B and Class C unstable radiated hardware that waste streams is really disposed of to the site. And that corresponds from TCPA March 24, 2022. They requested a volume of 57 cubic feet and a total radioactivity of 20,000 curies. We did receive a letter from the DCS recommending approval of this import request. Waste originating from the state of Minnesota, which is located west on that compact, does not require export authorization. Finally, they requested agreement termination date of August 31, 2022. And I would note that if approved, this application will meet the treaty contingent approval since it involves a radiated hardware in excess of 1,000 securities. The tech recommends approval of items applications.
John, where do we stand on our annual peer recap? And I'm not throwing it out a little bit, but where do we stand? Because my memory is in zone 2,000. What we have left.
When I did the spreadsheet earlier last week, I believe that if we approve all the contingent requests, we would be right at above the 275,000 curies. So I believe that's the case. So the exact reason why we do these as contingent requests.
And I was going to explain that for those that don't regularly attend. We found that through just trial and error that because irradiated hardware is hard to measure at an early stage when they're making their application, and it's not inaccurate until they truly get on the verge of shipping. People were asking for curie counts because they really had no way to estimate it. They would just pick a large number. What we found was that on paper, we were bumping up against the curie cap set by our Texas legislature, 275,000. As a result, we would have to stop issuing authorizations. But in practice, we never got close to 275,000 because when it actually got measured and actually shipped, the curie count was substantially less. Sometimes there were other factors. For instance, campaigns based on finances or logistics or whatever. So we decided that the appropriate do was create this contingent curie approval, which means when anything that is irradiated hardware that is the requested curie count is over 50,000. We issue it on a contingent basis. What that means is it is a contingent approval upon them being ready to ship. They provide us notice with a more accurate curie count, and then we approve that. What we have said about it is a first come first serve. So for instance, if we get to the point that John's described where we go over 275. Then when people ship, we will keep an actual curies that are coming in the gate. And once we hit 275, obviously both TCQ and WCS and us would say you can't do anymore. But until that time, it's first come first serve. So if you have a contingent curie authorization and you decide you're going to ship, hopefully behooves you to get that done earlier if you think there's going to be a problem with 275. 275. That being said, we've never had a problem with 275. We have never actually hit the 275. There was a couple of disposal years at the beginning of WCS accepting waste, just because waste had been waiting for a long period. So there's kind of a big influx at the very beginning. One of those first years, I think it was somewhat close to 275. Since that time, I don't believe we've ever even actual curious through the gate have never gotten close to 575. So that's somewhat long-winded explanation of our security program. Any other questions for the technical? I will hand it back for motion.
Make a motion to approve the airport application, sell energy, number 1-03330. Waste class T, class C, no more than state, street, under. Volume is 57 cubic feet, total radioactivity is 20,000 curies. Waste come from Minnesota, which is the Midwest Compact, prior to our authorization. The agreement, would terminate August 31, 2022. In this case, those treated as contingent. And so Excel will have to send a letter to the commission within, I can't remember, 5 days of the shipment, to specifically get an authorization for those materials.
There's a motion, is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion of item 9C, which is the first input application of Excel? Any public comments?
I would like to say that I'm opposed to the input applications in 9C and 9D. They're very high and curious, especially for volume. It's a little unclear, maybe you can shed some light on what exactly that's involved, the area we're talking about. I'm wondering if any of this is greater class C. And I'm still remain concerned about the potential for contact with water at the site. I'd love to see that date on how much pumping there's going on the site to keep it dry. Because last I ever heard, there was still ongoing pumping going on from the compact in the federal facilities. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. So basically, I am opposed to these two applications today.
Thank you, Senator. I will give my brief non-technical understanding of the radiated hardware, but literally it is just larger components that's the hardware part of it. And they come in large shipments, and they tend to have a higher purity count because of the method in which they are used within a reactor.
So the radiated hardware is basically metal that is very in the reactor itself, and because of the nature of that metal, steel, it contains cobalt and other metals. Those metals become activated with the neutrons of the reaction. So it's incredibly high curie content. It tends to be relatively small in volume. Like reactors kind of change their hardware out every so often. You get metal fatigue and issues like that. So those components have to be changed out, and they tend to sit in the field for some period of time until they get low enough in activity that they can actually be put in the cast. Anyway, that's a reasonable explanation, and I believe by definition they are not graded in Class C. If they were graded in Class C, they would not be acceptable for disposal at the site, and that's one of the things that TCEQ specifically checks on before they approve that waste stream. Anything greater than Class C is prohibited by the license from disposal at the site.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the Excel Energy, the first Excel Energy import application represented in item 9C, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. The next item is item 9D, which is the second import application for Excel Energy. And again, the reason there is two is because we have instructed people when you have irradiated hardware, we'd like that to be separated out into a separate application because of the contingent carry program. So this is the non-irradiated portion of the disposal they'd like to make. I will turn it back over to the Vice Chairman.
The technical committee has received and reviewed the import application from Excel Energy, March 2, 2022. In this case, it's number 1-0335-00. This is a similar application to what we just discussed. Again, Excel is the generator requesting authorization to dispose of waste in accordance with the Act. In this case, Excel is asking for Class A and Class B unstable, depleted, powdered, and ion exchange resin, canister filters, PAW trash, and hydrogen oxygen combiner catalyst. Those waste streams were approved for disposal at the site via letter of correspondence from TCEQ dated March 24, 2022. They've requested a volume of 2,150 cubic feet with total radioactivity of 870 curies. We did receive a letter from WCS recommending approval of the import request. Materials from Minnesota, which is part of the Midwest Compact, does not require export authorization. And the requested agreement would have a termination date of August 31, 2022. Technical committee recommends approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the technical committee from the commission?
I think the
Right. If I said WCS, I misspoke. TCEQ wrote the letter that said that the stream was acceptable.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we can move on to a motion.
I make a motion to approve the import request from Excel Energy, number 1-0335-00. The waste class is Class A and Class B. The waste form is unstable. Waste stream is depleted, powdered, and ion exchange resin, canister filters, PAW trash, and hydrogen oxygen combiner catalyst. The volume is 2,150 cubic feet. The radioactivity is 870 curies. Waste will originate from Minnesota. The agreement would terminate August 31, 2022.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the second import application of Excel Energy? Any public comment noting Ms. Haddon's objection to it before? But any other public comment to the second import application of Excel Energy? Hearing none, we will move on to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please indicate so by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. With that, we have completed item 9 on our agenda. We can move on to item 10, which is the report from Mr. Carlson concerning WCS.
I'm told to back up so people can't see up my nose on this, so, but I do need to be close to the microphone, so maybe I'll pick it up here. So to report on capacity, let me get my glasses on, of course. Where we stand In terms of year-to-date, again, that's 7 months so far in the year, starting in September and continuing through the end of March. We've received 23,027 cubic feet of low-level radioactive waste into the compact facility. And we've received 34,026 curies into that facility as well. So you can compare the 34,000 curies against the 275,000 curie annual limit, and that gives you an indication of where we are at this point. In terms of overall disposal through March of 2022, we've disposed of 240,138 cubic feet, which is 2.67% of the licensed capacity. We've disposed of 493,263 curies decayed, which is over 12%, 12.6% of the licensed capacity. In terms of what we have constructed today, we have 475,000 cubic feet constructed. So to date, we've consumed over the last 10 years, 50% of that constructed capacity. And that's where we sit today. Let's see, in terms of payments that are made both to TCEQ and to Andrews County, we just made our payments for the most recent quarter in March. That was $936,000 to TCEQ, $188,000 to Andrews County. And since inception, it's been $66 million paid to TCEQ and just about $15 million paid to Andrews County. So $81 million total in surcharges over the last 10 years. The only other thing I really wanted to bring up today was back on agenda item 5, the issue that's under investigation. And of course, you can correct me if I misstate on this. The item that's under investigation doesn't involve WCS, and no improper actions by WCS are alleged in the case of whatever that investigation is about. I believe that's correct. And that's all I had for today. Any questions?
Any questions for? So you heard the same question. Is there pumping?
There's been very little pumping lately because there's been very little rain. So that's, I think in the past 6 months, is there anybody from Andrews County here? I think in the past 6 months, we've had less than an inch of rain. So if you went down to the landfills today, what you would see is the areas where we have two kinds of water in the cells. We have contact water that actually would touch the MCCs when the rain comes down and it comes percolates through the material to get to our leachate collection system. And then you have non-contact water that doesn't come in contact with the waste. So typically you'll see in the bottom of the cell after a rainfall, you would see some non-contact water remaining there. And then over time, we would pump that non-contact water out. Today, you really don't see that because there hasn't been much rain at all.
Just a comment. Thank you for reporting on the percentage of license capacity, but also calling out percentage of.
Any other questions for Mr. Carlson?
Yeah, I just had a question. When you list after you list all those nice colors, then you list in detail what's happening in each container, say the process, as opposed to dispose. What is the process?
Let me catch up to you on that document and then I'll see what it means in my context. Send me
Most of your notes are self-evident, that it's a waiting. But every once in a while, you say process.
They talked about it in their semi-annual, not monthly report, it's a semi-annual. He has a copy of that shows that process material that was sent last week.
Can I, do you have one of the reports? Can I see it?
There's just a few that say process. And I just wonder- So, report from 9/1.
So Commissioner, I can check on that, but based on the context of that, what I would believe is that that's material that came into the site for processing and has not yet been disposed. But let me check to make sure that that's correct. I also see things that are on there, arrived awaiting approval, they have to go through an RS 5.0 process, an exemption process, or that kind of thing. But let me get a little bit more information for you on that.
It's not a physical thing, it's not something you're doing physically, it's something that it's a bureaucratic, I'll say.
No, I believe that's a physical process that we're talking about there. Again, let me get the detail for you, but that based on the context, I believe that's actual waste treatment or processing.
Any other questions for Mr. Carl? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we can go on to item 11, which is the chairman's report. Let me see if this gets better. So the other thing I'll report, our annual audit that is again required by our statute was recently concluded. It is up on our website if anyone wants to read it. My guess is none of you do, but if you want to, it's there. There were no findings in the audit, nothing that I saw of note, but of course it's there for public consumption. We want to also, as it relates to other forums, say thank you and happy retirement to Ted Buckner and to Kathy Davis from the Southeast and Southwest Compact respectively. They have been good friends to us. We've always worked well with them. They are great people in the low-level industry is better for their involvement. We look forward to working with the new executive directors in both of those compacts. Those are both very important compacts to us. They provide a lot of business that comes into our compact, so we view them as a very important partner, and we look forward to working with them. I will let Stephen in his report talk about the sunset, the actual sunset commission activity, but I want to once again reiterate to everyone, including commissioners, but those of you in the public as well. The sunset process most people dread, and I'm not going to say for a minute it's fun, but I do believe it is an incredibly important process. I'm glad we've gone through it. That probably is something that you wouldn't expect me to say, but it is a process that forces us to go through and do some self-analysis and also find some things that we can and should improve on. And we look forward to continue to working with Sunset staff to see the final version of their report, new recommendations they have for us. But it has been time consuming and a lot of work, but I think well worth it. For those of you who are not from the state of Texas, Texas has a process called the Sunset Advisory Commission that periodically looks at various agencies and bodies. While we are not a Texas agency, our statute specifically says we are subject to review by the Sunset Commission. They often, in their most extreme form, they can literally suggest that an agency gets sunset, meaning dissolved. But the other thing they can do, which is what they have the opportunity to do with us, make recommendations, suggestions. And again, it is a very good process that I think is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So I will let Stephen give the details of that, but I wanted to note that about the sunset. Last thing I will say is a general statement based on the last month that we have experienced. I want to reiterate again that we have an amazing group of commissioners. It seems as though here lately everything is getting more complicated. We are finding new areas that require attention, and we are doing a lot more than we have ever done. And we are very, very lucky that we have a set of commissioners that have technical expertise, have other expertises, have legal expertise that have allowed us to function very efficiently and effectively. And the work that, as I think Representative Burnham said, I am so glad that the forum here things we do, because I think we do a lot, and oftentimes it's not in these meetings, obviously in our private lives that we commit the time doing them. But we have an amazing set of commissioners. I am so impressed with the amount of time and effort they give us, because it's a lot. And just so all of you know, in Texas, we don't get paid to do this. So it is truly a volunteer effort, and I just want to express how important that is. And it's for that reason that I think I take what we do very seriously. It is serious business, and our rules, our processes, all of it are there for a reason. And out of respect for the time and effort that all of these people have put into this, I think it's the reason we need to be sure that we treat what we do as very seriously and take everything very seriously. So I just want to say that in appreciation of everyone, and hopefully set that tone as we move forward. So with that, that is the conclusion of item 11. Our next item is item 12, and it is our executive director's report, and I will turn it over to Stephen Rains.
Chairman Hurley, first, I want to report back here on where we're at in the sunset process. As we talked about on each of these meetings over the past several months. As we continue through the sunset process, Meg and I met periodically with Sunset, answer any questions that they have with the Sunset staff. They are moving towards drafting a report that they will then send to the full Sunset Commission with recommendations from the staff. What changes should be made. We expect to have that report towards the end of May, and hopefully a preview of that we'll have opportunity to respond to before the report is actually finalized in late May. In June, there will be a public hearing in Texas of the Sunset Advisory Commission, but there will be public comment where everyone here will have an opportunity to comment with questions from the Sunset Commissioners themselves, which all 8 were welcome to attend. Chairman Hurley and I will certainly be present to answer those questions. But if you have questions about how that process is moving forward, or anticipating anything that you'd like to visit with Sunset about, just let me know. We're always happy to hear comments from the public about that process as we move forward with it as well. And I might add, as part of the Sunset process, the Texas legislature asked us to to go through a deep, what they call a deep dive budget review, where they visit with us, the money we are spending, and requests that we put through for the revenue that. And that process is going very smoothly as well. We don't anticipate that actually being beneficial to request we'll make this next legislative session for our appropriation that we receive. But if you have questions, please, I'd be more than happy to answer them about that process. Or anything else we can do from staff's perspective as well.
I was remiss in saying, Commissioner, the audit is actually in your packet, if you have any desire to look at it. Also, some of the information you submitted to the Sunset Commission is in your packet, if you want to review that. So if you want any further information on those two items, they're actually in your packet. With that, we were through with item number 12, and we were getting close to the end. Item 13 is future meetings, and again, this is one of the last pages in your packet. Not San Antonio. So May 26, 2022 is listed as San Antonio. Obviously, that's not accurate. We will be back in Austin for May 26th. July 21st, we're going to be and as part of that, we will take a tour of the facility. And we will get back to you later with details about where we're going to meet in arrangements for that. Long-term planning on September 29th of the fall, we will be going back to Vermont. Going to both Andrews and Vermont is important to us. Andrews for obvious reasons, since where the facility is. It also gives us an opportunity to hear from people that live in Andrews County. They'd like to address this. They don't have to drive in, it's their opportunity. It's also our opportunity to see the facility and interact with WCS. Obviously, traveling to Vermont is important because they are an equal party state in our compact, and we want to give people in Vermont the opportunity to address us. And we also want to go up there and interact with any government officials that have the need to communicate with us or that we need to talk to. So we have tried every year to go to Vermont. Obviously, during the COVID period, so this will be our first trip back to Vermont in 3 years, maybe more. Obviously, but that is a long range planning. As we say, every meeting, we will never meet for the sake of meeting. If for any reason we don't have sufficient business to justify a meeting, we will cancel it in the context of the next 3 meetings. We will not cancel if we do not have sufficient activity to make cancel our meeting. But we will obviously know that in the coming days and weeks because of the submission of applications have to be at least 35 days out. So as we get closer to 35 days, we will be able to tell we have sufficient need to meet. Any questions about future meetings?
I have a I good at this, and I haven't nailed down the meeting room in the state actually got in Montpelier. September 9th is a good time. You're going to want to look into a week because the peak foliage will be October 6th. And in that area. So, look at rooms, stick around, enjoy what's coming up.
I believe that's a guarantee by Commissioner Soto. So if the leaves are not changed, whatever leaves like
Probable 12%. Yeah, only Andrew's meeting, this is to the forum. Steve with the USA, we had this before, and we neither was involved. We go to a tour also the same day, usually that will our commission meeting. We've always done a call, but we've also done it with Rico, so I know that Steve gave a pretty good presentation. And so if you want to see that, also get hold of me and we can arrange that at the same, usually the day before the commission meeting where everybody has a commission meeting, they can leave from it.
And obviously both of those tours are very informative. So Any other questions about future meetings? Hearing none, we can move on to item 14, which is our adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All in favor? Thank you all very much for coming. We hope to see you at a future meeting. Took longer than I thought.
I gave you my speech first and the other.